I'm Vinnie Politan. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on Closing Arguments. And make no mistake, this was an absolutely gruesome, gruesome murder. The killings of these two innocent people of Michelle and John was absolutely horrific. What happened to them, how they died, what they went through, how they suffered, and what this killer did. It was bad. Now, when you look at the case, right, you catch the person responsible and you look at their defense. And in this case, the defendant, the killer, had no defense. And we see this a lot on court TV. There are many cases where the evidence is overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming, and there is no defense. So what happens? What happens when there's no defense? Where do they turn? They turn oftentimes to the defense of absolute desperation, insanity, an insanity defense. And that's what happened here. That's absolutely what happened here. And you know from watching trials here on court TV through the years, when this becomes an insanity defense, it's all about this so-called battle of the experts. And I've always said it, and I say it every time we have a trial like this, that when you have an insanity defense and you have a battle of the experts, no matter which side you're looking at in the case, you can find, and there will be an expert that will give you the opinion, the testimony that your side needs, whether you're a defendant or from the prosecution. I'm a former prosecutor, okay? That's the way our system works. Experts disagree. So what one expert says or two experts say is not the law. It's just an opinion. It's just an opinion, which has to be viewed in light of all of the evidence in a case. Juries don't make up their minds, oh, okay, he said it was insanity, so I believe. No, it's what he said, what she said, and what all the other evidence in the case says. Let me tell you what happened in this case. The defense expert, as expected, said the defendant couldn't distinguish between right and wrong and was insane at the time, suffering from some acute psychosis. Well, prosecutors, first expert that they found, I guess from what I understand from researching this case, agreed. So prosecutors do what litigants, whether it's the prosecution or defense, does time and time again. This is not unheard of. This happens in cases all of the time. They brought in a second expert. And the second expert in that case said, no, he knew right from wrong. He was sane at the time. But there was some problem with this second expert about being able to actually testify. That part is a little bit less clear to me tonight, what happened. But at the end of the day, he wasn't able to come forward in this case and testify. Prosecutors tried to bring in a third expert. The judge barred them from doing so. And then we have prosecutors caving, absolutely caving. And remember, as a prosecutor, what's your job? Your job is to do justice, which is to seek the truth in the case. Seek the truth. They were planning on taking this case to trial because the truth, what the evidence told them, was that this was a murder, that this was not someone who did not know the difference between right and wrong, not someone who was legally insane at the time, but someone who had planned this thing, and the evidence all suggested and pointed towards a murder case for prosecutors. But because they couldn't have their expert, they caved. And now this defendant has been adjudged not guilty. You don't believe me? Take a listen to what happened in court today.
The defendant was evaluated by Dr. Philip Resnick and Dr. Gregory Landrum, who both opined that at the time of the offense charge, the defendant was suffering under such a mental defect that he was unable to distinguish right from wrong or understand the consequences of his actions. Dr. Landrum found that due to the defendant's illness, he is manifestly dangerous to himself or others and therefore meets the criteria for commitment to a secure treatment facility of the Department of Children and Family Services as provided under the law. The state and the defense stipulated and agreed that the defendant was not legally sane at the time of the offense and is therefore not guilty of the offense by reason of insanity. Therefore, the court finds that the defendant is found not guilty on the offenses charged in the indictment for the cause of insanity due to mental illness as defined in Florida statutes. The defendant currently meets the criteria for involuntary commitment to the Department of Children and Family Services as provided under Florida law and Florida rules, and in that the defendant, because of his mental illness, is manifestly dangerous to himself or others. Based upon those facts and conclusions of the law, it's ordered that the defendant is not guilty of the offenses charged in the November 8, 2016 indictment by reason of insanity. The defendant meets the criteria for involuntary placement with the Department of Children and Family Services. The defendant is hereby committed to the Department of Children and Families to be placed in a secure mental health treatment facility.
For now. But as you know, he's going to be back and forth to court every 6 months, every year, with expert witnesses who are going to tell us how well he's doing with his treatment and how he should be given more and more freedom until he's finally released, like the guy who tried to kill the President of the United States. That's the reality of what's going to happen here, okay? That's going to happen. I don't know when, but it's going to happen. Now, this case could have been tried, and it actually was today during, of all things, the victim impact statements. The family members, the sisters of the victim in this case were incredible in court. As soon as I saw them, I knew I needed to speak with them, and they are joining us tonight from Florida. Michelle Mishcon's siblings, Cindy, Jody, and Mason, her brother, are with us. Thank you all for being here, number one. Number two, on behalf of all of us here at Court TV, our thoughts are with you and your family for what happened to your sister, and also for what has happened to your family, the way you've been treated by our system of justice. And I talk about our system every night here, and I want to apologize on behalf of the whole system, which absolutely let you down. So let's begin here. And I want to talk about Michelle, but I want to save that for the end so we finished on a high note. That's the only reason I want to do that last. But I'll begin with you, Cindy. When did you and your family find out that your sister's killer was never going to be punished for what he did and was going to be given this not guilty deal by prosecutors?
So I think that Jody has more information than me on that because I excused myself from this case a long time ago because I saw the road ahead and I knew that this would happen and I couldn't handle it. So I removed myself from the situation. But my understanding is that we learned this, I think, on Friday.
On Friday. Jody, you want to give us a few more details there? Because I'm a former prosecutor. This case is 6 years old. If you as a prosecutor believed that this person was actually not guilty by reason of insanity, this case would have been wrapped up a long, long time ago. You and I both, we all know that, right? So can you give us a little bit of how you were treated, how you found out through the course of these 6 years, for goodness sake?
Sure. So I can tell you in the beginning, or myself personally, had to scream out loud for them to even notify us that there were hearings. I felt I made it crystal clear that I wanted to be at every hearing. I wanted to know about every hearing. So I would say during the first year that was a very big struggle. The state attorney's office overcame that, and they did notify us then of the upcoming hearings. We learned at a hearing on October 28th that our expert witness would not be testifying because of a medical condition. We learned on, as my sister said, I believe on Tuesday, that more likely than not, we were not going to be going to trial, and they confirmed that for us on Friday.
Mason, overall, how would you describe the treatment of your family by our system of justice?
It's been terrible. I mean, since the beginning, we keep getting told things that just never materialized, and they were so overconfident from day one. the day after the murder happened, when we met with the first prosecutors, who were just overconfident and just like very basic in their approach, and they're basically just saying they're going to claim insanity, and they're going to say he's insane, and then we're going to say, well, he spoke to the paramedics, and the paramedics will show his state of mind. And it was just basic. And that's where they were going from the beginning. And then 2 years later, we spoke to them, and it was basically the same argument. And it's like, they got $1 million defense team. I think you're going to need a little bit more than that. But yeah, I mean, everything they told us just turned out to be not true, or the things they didn't tell us they were going to be doing, such as taking the death penalty off. That came to us through the media. We had no idea they were even considering that. Then when they decided they didn't want a jury trial, they were going to just go with the judge. We didn't know that till it was in the media there also. So really, every step of the way, we either were misled or not told at all.
Yeah, and Cindy, you know what really aggravated me today, as I'm listening to you and your sister in court, was the lack of notification, the way you're treated by the so-called victim's advocate. Because, I mean, in Florida, there's a victim's Bill of Rights. I mean, it's the law down there. They have to do certain things. And as I heard what happened to you, I'm scratching my head. I'm like, how on earth did we take away the voice of the victim in a case like this? And the most serious of all cases. I didn't understand that. Was there ever any sort of apology? Was there ever any sort of anything to acknowledge what you've been through?
There really wasn't. And like I said, I removed myself from it a long time ago because I felt like I was doing a lot of the work for them. I'm the one who went through the text messages. I'm the one who pulled all the information. I'm the one who spent hours and hours and hours trying to get them to understand exactly what their case was and what their case should be. And it fell on deaf ears. And then when we tried to go ahead above the state attorney that we were dealing with at the time, and we met with the right-hand man at the time of the whole state attorney, I felt like he basically belittled us and yelled at us. So it was a horrible experience from beginning to end. And the thing that's most shocking to me is that I come from a really prominent, good family in South Florida. We've grown up here. My father was mayor for 18 years. I didn't think this could happen to my family, and it did.
And think about it. It happens to your family.
They had no regard for us.
I'm afraid of how many other families are perhaps being treated this way and just sort of discarded. I mean, this is beyond outrageous tonight. Jody, the other part of the outrage is not only at the system, prosecutors, and what has developed there, but you had to be in that courtroom with the killer and his family. What was that like?
Yeah, so like I said, I've gone to every hearing for 6 years. It's been torture. I think you heard in our statements the disappointing things we heard from both Austin, the defendant, and from his family in listening to the jailhouse calls. His father said some horrible, disgusting things about my sister and brother-in-law, just really about so many people. It was so disappointing. At one point on the tapes, Austin talked about this being a vacation. He gets his meals and his paper delivered to him daily. He gets to sleep whenever he wants. It was honestly very disheartening throughout. And for us to know all along that he was in a cell with a phone, with unlimited access, and that really was his only lifeline to anybody and kept him going, was disappointing from the very beginning.
Mason, what are the thoughts of you and your sisters and the family moving forward now? Because like I said off the top, inevitably what happens in cases like this is that the treating physicians come into court, whether it's once a year, once every 6 months, for an update on the status of the patient. They're going to come in, they're going to say the patient is responding well to treatment, and they're going to ask the judge for more freedom. Oh, maybe he goes home with his parents this weekend. Maybe he takes a trip to the mall. Maybe, you know, maybe he's home for the holidays. All those things are gonna happen in the future. I don't know if you, I assume that you kind of know this because of what you've been through, but that's the reality. So what's the family's plan, Mason, going forward?
Yeah, I mean, so a couple of things. I mean, the first thing you asked before with Jody is, you know, the state apologize or how they handled that. They haven't apologized. I think they've done a great job. When we spoke to them last week, they were patting themselves on the back and were telling us that they've done the best possible job, and this is the area of the state you would want to be in this type of case. And I mean, we were rolling our eyes because obviously if this is the best the state of Florida has to offer, then we are all in trouble. But as far as going what's next, we agree. You know, one of the primary doctors on the case and the prosecutors both told us that, you know, don't expect more than 6 to 12 months for him to be in this facility, and then he'll get released, maybe even sooner. So, I mean, beyond that, we don't really know what we can do other than staying in the public and making it, you know, a big deal so that when a judge has to finally sign an order, maybe because it's a high-profile situation, they wouldn't want to take that risk and sign it and release him. But beyond that, as far as the criminal side goes, there's nothing we can do on that side. You know, maybe on the civil side for Austin himself, because obviously we are 100% believing that he's going to get out at some point and he's going to want to profit from it and make money, because that seems to be their MO since the beginning. They have no shame and they will do whatever they need to do for their own best interest. So we'll have to figure out a way to try to stop that from happening, and that will be all we really can do.
Before we go tonight, and I don't want to take too much of your time, an exhausting day for all of you, so again, appreciate your time. Whoever wants to go, to just let the folks at home who never met your sister, tell us something about your sister. Jody, do you want to do it?
Sure, I could tell you that my sister was the best. My sister and John were the most loving, caring, giving, warm people. I said in court today, sadly, the only blessing of this all is that they were together, because neither would have survived well without the other. We talked a lot in court today about why they were in their garage and why their garage was open every night and how they welcomed everybody in. So I think like most people feel about their siblings, we loved them with everything that we had. I said in court today, we are all still living here. There were 5 of us. We spent every holiday, every birthday together. We traveled together. We were a family that really loved and enjoyed being with one another. So this has devastated us. This has broken us. My father has not been well since the day he learned of this happening. And when you have great people like this and they go in this way, it's, you know, it's devastating. It ruins your life forever.
Well, again, thank you so much for sharing this. I think it's important to talk about because the victim gets lost way too often. And when I heard you this morning in court, I was like floored. So Cindy, Jody, Mason, the best to you, the best to your dad, Mr. Mayor, and we'll see how all this turns out. But it was awful today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.